Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm gonna just wait a minute while people come into the room. While you're coming in, say hello in the chat. Let me know where you're talking to me from. I hope you're having beautiful summer weather. We are here. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, of all places. For those of you that were in my last talk a couple weeks ago, say hello too and let me know that you're back, because I'd love to know who's coming back. Hey Ava in Miami. Hey Lizzie. Hey Marlene. Cool. I'm excited to talk to you guys today. I think hey Virginia. Hey Massachusetts. What up Brooklyn? What's up New York? Cheerio England. Yes, Australia, New York City, and Georgia. Lord have mercy. Those are all very different places. LA, Munich. What's up, Pennsylvania, Philly? Okay, cool. I'm so happy to have you guys here. I do think this is a timely topic, as Katie just said in the chat, and I hope everyone here is safe and healthy, and their families are safe and healthy, and everyone is finding joy and fulfillment in this time. It has certainly been a strange time and a challenging time for many people. So I join you in that. I am with you. I know how confusing these times can be. So this topic, this isn't going to be for everyone. I do have notes here, so you might see me glancing down for notes. I also do have a diffuser on in the back, so if you hear something, it's essential oils keeping me calm. So this talk is not going to be for everyone. I do hope that those of you who are like, activism, will listen with open minds, open ears, because I do think that you'll gain a lot of this that is helpful for you in your career outside of any sort of movement that's happening. I think this is a discussion that is super powerful for those of us that really want to have long, successful careers in the actors. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bret Shuford. I'm a Broadway actor. I'm the Broadway Life Coach. I'm a Backstage expert here, and I help trained actors accomplish higher levels of success so they can become industry leaders without selling themselves or selling out. And if you want clarity to build a name for yourself, you want to create real connections in this business, I can help you live your best Broadway life. So I always say, start with this. When I work with any client or any actor, I always say, rule number one in show business, there are no rules. And that's the truth. There is a lot of, we always are trying to find these rules, but no path is the same for every actor. For me, I grew up in Southeast Texas. I saw my first musical when I was 6. I was bit by the bug at 6 years old. There were not a lot of boys like me in that area of the country, of the world, who really had a passion for musical theater at 6 years old. So I was an odd man out, but I knew what I wanted, and I was very driven, and I followed that path. I did a lot of community theater. I just immersed myself in dance classes, dance competitions. I was involved in choir, and I did all the musicals, and I did all the thespian conventions. Just total drama nerd, total musical theater nerd. All through high school, went to college for musical theater. I attended my first 2 years of school at University of Oklahoma musical theater program. And then I graduated from Wagner College, which is a small liberal arts school in New York City, with a degree in theater, and immediately got my equity card at Paper Mill Playhouse. I then continued to work regionally, doing some really interesting work and a lot of classic musicals like West Side Story, Chorus Line. I think in my life I've done 5 different chorus lines. And booked my first Broadway show was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about activism. And I want to talk about, as I want to let you know, I'm just giving a little bit of my background so you understand, like, I wasn't handed this. This has been a lot of hard work to get to where I'm at. And I've learned a lot in my time growing up. The thing that I've learned working with actors is that so many of us are really afraid to ruffle feathers. That when I talk about rule number one being there are no rules in show business, we all have this fear that there's some sort of blacklist, that if you do something, if you say something that upsets one person, you're going to get put on some list and you're never going to get hired again. And I'm here to tell you that there is no list. There is no list. There is no magic key to getting in. What people really want is to connect with you as a human being. And so many of us adopt this mindset of scarcity from other people telling us, oh, being an actor is so hard. When we have conversations with people, we forget about the empathy that is instilled in us as a gift. To be an actor, you have to have empathy. You have to have this ability to understand and compassionately get inside a character and understand those things, right? So, we can wonder sometimes, and we can doubt this, this idea of, am I doing enough? We can doubt our path. Or maybe we say to ourselves, am I being selfish in the pursuit of this life? Am I being narcissistic by being an actor? We can ask ourselves those kind of questions, right? Let me know if that is you, if those sort of doubts pop up for you. We also get those questions, those dreaded questions a lot, like, what have I seen you in? Which can make us feel really insecure if we haven't done much. Or, the question of, or there's always that jerk who always says, oh, you're an actor, so where do you wait tables? Or our parents who say things like, why don't you call them? You should be in that show. You should just apply, right? And so often people are very limited on their knowledge. When people are asking you questions and they're invested in who you are, they're doing the best they can with what they have. And what we have as an actor is this ability to be a power of example, to use our voices. We have this language, this ability to, again, like I said, be empathic, to put into words how we feel, right? So activism really is already a part of what we do. So let me just talk a little bit about myself. So when I booked my first Broadway show, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I moved to New York City in 1999, and I was very afraid to be openly gay. That was just something I was not willing to talk about. I thought it was going to hurt me. I thought it was going to damage my reputation. People weren't going to be convinced. And I'm just using this as an example because A, it's Pride Month, and B, we've got this immediate action that is happening around the Black Lives Matter movement, and people are afraid. People are scared to speak openly. And in my experience, when I was scared to speak openly about who I was and the thing I believed in, I thought, if I speak openly about this, it could hurt my chances of booking more work. What if they don't believe that I could passionately be in love with a woman? What if? But when I learned to let go of whatever shame, whatever guilt or fear that I had around this belief or this thing, and I decided instead I'd rather be 100% myself in everything I do. And I started to show up and I found myself happier. And what ended up happening is the people that didn't agree with me weren't a part of my life anymore. And then I opened myself up to this entire other wing of people who did accept me, who were part of that. And it wasn't until then that I booked, my first Broadway show, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and then I did Beauty and the Beast. And then I was in the original cast of The Little Mermaid. And then I've done major motion pictures, and I've done television, and I've been very outspoken about who I am, my marriage to my husband. We have an entire Instagram account called Broadway Husbands. And to me, that is activism. Sharing who I am is activism. Sharing who you are is what helps people understand, and they see and they learn through the power of example. So I'm going to give you some really practical tools to explore that. And I'm going to prove to you today that being an actor / activist can actually help you in your acting career. So many of these principles I'm going to discuss, I go really deep into a free webinar that I'm offering. It's called The Art of Networking. And you can take that class at, well, let me just tell you, for a long time, people would always ask me, how do you meet people? You're so good at meeting people in the industry. And they would say, I hate networking. And I came up with this phrase, I don't network, I Bret work. So the link for the free webinar is bretworking.com, BRET working.com. It's totally free. It's 20 minutes long, and it's going to give you some really deeper tools to learn how to communicate with people as you start to network with people online. I hope you really enjoy it, but I want you to stay on here because we'll dig in just on the surface here, and then you can get a little bit deeper in that webinar. So if you feel a calling to stand up for yourself, or if you feel a calling to stand up for a marginalized community, or even the planet, own that calling, own it, and know that you're not alone. You're not alone in the world. You're not alone in the acting community. There are people who also stand with you in those places. It's a matter of being willing to voice that and be able to let them find you, right? There are other people looking for people just like you. So when we talk about acting and activism, we have to start with this baseline that acting is activism. Art is activism. Merely creating art into the world is a form of activism. You don't have to stand on some mountaintop and preach. You get to do this thing that you are naturally good at, that God has given you this gift to be able to do. So acting is activism. You help the world through the work that you do. Simply singing a song that conveys how you feel, reciting a speech that is other people's words and interpreting those words, that gives perspectives to other people, to the writer even. However you choose to create, that can be a form of activism if you allow yourself to be seen. So most of us get into acting because we didn't see ourselves, right? Most of us become actors because we didn't see ourselves represented in the world, or we didn't feel like we belonged. Let me know if that's you. And we start acting in order to find that place where we belong. So for me, I found theater, and that was it. And that's where I've made my living. But I want you to trust that creating something is enough, because the world needs joy. If it's something joyful, right? The world needs escape. The world needs to take action, and you can inspire that through the work that you do as an actor. Sometimes you can say something and people hear it just a little differently because of the way you say it. I talk about this idea of credibility versus vulnerability. I discussed this a little bit in the Art of Networking webinar. But the idea here is that we have to be willing to be vulnerable. I have a quote by Brené Brown. Brené Brown, if you don't know who she is, she's amazing. She discusses vulnerability. She's a scientist who has studied vulnerability in human beings. And vulnerability, she says, is not winning or losing. It is having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is our greatest measure of courage. People who wade into discomfort and vulnerability and tell the truth about their stories are the real badasses. Her quote. If we are only showing people our credibility, meaning we're only sharing on social media, on email, we're only sharing our work, we're actually missing out on the vulnerability. So I use this phrase, credibility versus vulnerability, and that we have to find a balance of both. When it's all credibility, we're losing out on the human connection. You become a robot. No one wants to work with an actor robot, right? If all you know is to talk about what auditions and what things are happening, you're forgetting to connect as a human. On the other side, if all you're doing is talking about being a human being and you're not sharing who you are as an actor, as an artist, you're not allowing people to be a part of that artistic journey, that collaborative journey that you want people to join. So credibility versus vulnerability has to be met evenly. There's a balance of both in everything that we do. And that's how you really start to make a real connection with people in an authentic way. So why do I think it's important to incorporate activism in your work as an actor? First off, activism, being involved in any movement, is going to put you a pulse, give you a pulse on what's happening in the world, right? I mean, Shakespeare's plays were political. The art form we are in was a political form. So if we aren't discussing and learning about what's happening politically and in activism and socio-politically in the world, we're actually not going to have a pulse on what new work is, right? When the writers that are going to be up and coming are going to be interpreting this, right? So it's important that you get involved in some movement because it's going to feed your future as an artist. So if you want to tell important stories, you've got to know what's going on in the world. That's just the truth. Getting involved in activism is also a wonderful way to be of service and to connect with the people you know, the people you used to know, and the people that you want to know. This can fuel your pursuits by putting you in a collective of like-minded people within your community, a sub-community within the community of acting. So organizations that I think are important within the Broadway community are Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS. The Actors Fund is a nonprofit organization that does a lot of amazing work for actors. There's a lot of charitable organizations that you can get involved with, and I guarantee you'll meet someone who works in our industry in that world. So getting involved is powerful in that way. The more aware you are of the world, the more actively you can actually reflect that in the work that you do. It's going to make you a better actor. Here's some things to consider, however, when you start to discover your voice, right? When it comes to getting involved in any sort of activism. If everyone likes you, you're not working hard enough. I say this a lot to clients, but your goal as an actor is not to be liked. Your goal as an actor is to become known. And if you aren't sharing who you are because you're afraid people won't like you, you're missing out on the golden opportunity to meet those people. Oh, great. Backstage has listed some lists of organizations to support right now, which is awesome. So you're going to, if you share your opinion if you share your opinion about really anything, you're going to probably lose some followers on Instagram, right? Do not be afraid to lose followers because you're sharing who you are. Because guess what you're doing? You're creating space for those people who believe in what you believe. Now, when you're sharing your opinion, that's a very dangerous territory, right? We want to be able to share an opinion in the idea that it helps and it serves, okay? Know why you're making the post, what you want people to feel, what action do you want them to take. Double check that what you're saying. You've heard activism on social media can make us lose jobs. Activism on social media can make, well, listen, this again goes back to my thing at the beginning. This isn't for everyone, right? Not everyone's going to want to be political or be too involved politically. So I'm not even saying you have to be political. And we're going to talk a little bit about ways you can be an activist and not share things that are dividing and controversial, okay? But I want to just say this out loud, that what people think and what people think about you and what people feel about you really in the end is none of your business. If you have a passion for something and you know it can help and you know you can help other people and be of service to other people, and you stand by that, and you know that through sharing this information and through connecting with people, you're going to make a difference, then it's important that you stand up for that. But you always have to think when you're making these posts, right? And social media, like this question here, can make you lose jobs. You want to think about how you want people to feel. Sometimes when it comes to passion, if we're impassioned and we are upset and we are angry, we can viscerally use our social media to vent. That's not about the people watching. That's about you. And you can't, to use social media as a dumping ground for your feelings is not useful. So you always want to think about what do I want my audience to feel? People who are watching you, including casting directors, including people in the industry, are your audience. How do you want them to feel? What do you want them to be affected by the work that you do? And you use that in the work that you do, not just in your acting, but in the things you believe in. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to say is you want to create a dialogue with people. If you're going to share how you feel, if you're going to share something that you're impassioned by, and when you make your voice heard, people are going to hear you. And that means that people will want to come to you for discussion. You are opening yourself up to discussion. So be open, be curious, and know that engaging in conversation with other people, that's how we invoke change in the world. And as scary as that can be, right, we go back to this vulnerability and the courage of vulnerability. I have an example. I wrote a blog post this weekend about my view of leadership and how I think the theater community could invest a little bit more in training leadership within the theater community. And it was scary because it is opinionated, and sometimes, I don't write everything's on an opinion piece. And again, it's about balance, credibility versus vulnerability. But I felt very passionate and needing to get this idea out into the world. And of course, in my head, as I'm doing this, and this is how I want you to think too, is I was thinking, my mom will read this and that'll be it. And then I got a phone call from a major Broadway producer yesterday, and we were on the phone for an hour, and he wasn't upset. We just had a lovely conversation about ways to invoke change within the theater community. And if I hadn't been vulnerable enough to write that article, we wouldn't have had that conversation. I connected with this producer on a different level than I ever have. And that's the possibility you have by being vocal and speaking up about what you believe in. So I want to say, just sort of back to Marlene's, I've heard activism on social media can make us lose jobs. This goes back to, again, if everyone likes you, you're not working hard enough. If you truly, truly believe in it, then it is up to you to put it out into the world and not be afraid. You might lose a job, but you open yourself up to so many more things, especially getting to be who you are and giving a voice to who you are in the world, which is going to be so much more important than some job. It's going to carry you through many, many, many jobs. Okay, and so I told the story about the blog post, but a simple way that you can be, and this kind of goes back to saying a simple way that you can do this. Oh, Ken Rush. A simple way that you can be an activist as an actor. And this is, if you're not comfortable being too opinionated or too vocal, and listen, I said this is not for everybody. There are ways you can do that without being too standing out too much, right? And the way you do that is by promoting others. The way you do that is by sharing other people who you believe in content, promoting charities, promoting nonprofits, right? Where we can get in trouble is if we're sharing violent things because of police brutality. If some people can't handle violence, right? And we don't want to share that in our feed unless there's a warning. But if we are sharing where people can go, if we're sharing messages of people who have experienced things and we're prefacing it and we're taking care of our audience and saying, you know, like when you go to a show and they say there's strobe lights, if you're going to share things that are violent or hard for people to watch and stomach, give people warning. I've seen a lot of stuff over the last few weeks and it's hard to watch. People do need a warning because when you take care of your audience, they can decide, right? They can decide, and you actually won't lose people. I said to recently that by not inviting people to your party, you're the party of you, the party that includes whatever it is you believe in, you're actually doing that thing where, when somebody like throws a party and doesn't invite you and you get really hurt and you're like, why didn't they invite me? And you say something to them and they're like, well, I didn't think you wanted to come. You're still disappointed, right? So maybe sometimes this disclaimer, giving people a buy-in and saying, I just want to give you a heads up. This is something I believe in. If this isn't for you, I totally understand. You can skip ahead. Right? Take care of your audience, preface it, let them know, hey, if you don't believe in this, no problem. You don't have to. Take care of them. So I do think that if you're not comfortable standing on a soapbox, support others who are. If that's something you believe in, right? If you're like, I respect them, whether or not I agree with them, I respect their belief and I want to serve that cause, you can share that content. You can promote it for them. And that is not only being of service and connecting with those people, but that is activism. That is activism. So support organizations, show people how you support them without preaching to them. Invite them, don't preach. And just sharing other people's message can be enough. Okay, so that's my talk on activism. I want to open this up for questions. I'm not a expert in a lot of social justice movements, but I am passionate about a lot of the movements that are currently happening. So I would love to have a discussion and join you guys and support you guys in whatever is happening. So I'm just looking in the chat to see what people have written. If you don't feel comfortable speaking directly, you can amplify the voices of others 100%, and I encourage you to do it no matter what. Ken Rush. Hi, Ken. Any suggestions for someone trying to get cast starting a professional career at the age of 62 and maybe speaks his mind too much on social media? Well, I do think I think some of the suggestions I offered, which I could be useful, right? I always think when we're talking about social media, and if you don't follow Heidi Dean is amazing. Heidi Dean is marketing for actors. She's done a lot of social media courses on here. But when it comes to social media, you do want to be careful about your opinion. What I have found for myself is I found that there are some platforms I use where I strictly share political points of view. And that's a limited audience. That's usually people who know me and who are close to me. And then I share other platforms for another specific audience. So I use Instagram for my general audience. Stories, I might share some things that I think need political or social justice movement kind of things that I think need support. I'll put that a lot of that in my Instagram stories, because my feed, I don't want to get mixed in with that, depending on the post. I don't want to get too into that, right? The feed lives on. The story after 24 hours goes away unless you create a highlight. So I do think that you do have to be careful. And then to me, really the message is about giving people the option. I'm going to use Facebook for this. If you don't want to hear those things, don't follow me here. Follow me on Instagram. Right? Or I'm going to use Twitter for this. Don't follow me here. If you don't want to hear these things, go here. And, there's ways to really structure your social media so that it serves both. And then there's ways to also structure your posts so that you're really giving people the option. Hey, I'm sorry if I've said these things and they've offended you, but I'm not going to stop, or I'm only going to share them in my stories, or you can set your own boundaries around all of that. I hope that helps. Immediately feels right. I'm so glad. Please be inspired. Vulnerability is our greatest measure of courage. 100%. Own that calling. Okay, Savannah asks, I have done plays and musicals in high school, church, and community theater company, and took more class, made 2 short films for more experience, and how will I get into the entertainment industry? Well, that's a great question. There's so many ways. But my biggest suggestion, Savannah, is to keep training. And don't just train because there's a class near you. When I talk about training, train up. Train up. Go to the studios with the people who are just a little bit better than you. Train with people who are more advanced. When you're in a room with people who are more advanced, you level up. It pushes you, it challenges you, you bear witness to people who are better than you. It can be scary and vulnerable. There's a theme today, vulnerability. Great. Okay, other questions that are popping up. How do you handle working with a director who doesn't share your same views, who may stand or demonstrate against what you stand for? Do you not take the job? Ooh, Jessica, that is such a good question. First off, I think that you have to divide or separate the director from the person sometimes. If it's relevant to the project, if you're doing a project and the piece doesn't stand with what you believe, then I do think that that's something you would consider not taking, right? But there's always consequences that you have to own. You can't be mad at them because of their beliefs and yours don't, and you decide that you don't want to do that because that I don't believe in the message of that show. I don't believe in what that's saying, and then quit and then be mad at them, right? You got to own and come from a place of like, this feels more authentic to who I am to not do this. No judgment on them. That's their belief, but I'm going to step away from this. It's important that you really own your part in it and allow them to be who they need to be. Now, again, that's always, I think, relevant to the story itself and the piece itself. The director is a person and they can do whatever they want in their personal life. But if in the room, if that doesn't affect it, I think that that's worth sticking with, in my opinion. Yes, staying in class is a great networking tool as well. Train up. Would you say it'd be best to share our opinions on our stories or feeds if we feel strongly about the need for change for that particular cause. I'm concerned the 24-hour story share. So we just say it's best to share our opinions on our stories or feeds if we feel strongly about them. So I would say, being just the social media nerd that I am, I did put posts about Black Lives Matter in my feed because I believe in that, and I think that I want to amplify Black voices within the community right now. So I did make a post about that, and I'm willing to lose followers for that because I believe in it, right? But I'm not preaching, I'm not judging, I'm not saying people have failed, and what I am saying is we got to lift these people up. We have to find a path in legislation and votes and things that can lift people up, right? So sharing your opinion has to be constructive. And so I don't know if that answered your question. 24-hour story share. Yeah. So the other thing you can always do is say, I've posted, like make a feed post and say, check out my stories, and make a story highlight of whatever it is you put in your stories. Like I would say, for those of you that are interested in this movement, check out my stories. And then that might be a great way to get your message out there without putting it in your actor feed if you're using your Instagram feed strictly for your acting. I'm so glad you're getting a lot out of this, April. What's a good way to stay encouraged in the midst of this pandemic when the outlook seems so uncertain? I'm 32 and I just moved back from New York City and feel like I just have to start over, and it scares me. Michael, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Encouragement is really going to be about acceptance. And it starts with accepting that we are powerless over the situation in this moment. And I would say acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. If I'm upset, if I'm disturbed, it's because I'm not accepting the circumstances that I'm currently in. So we have to accept there's this pandemic. Theaters, probably in New York at least, not going to come back till probably the end of the year. And that's sad. And that's, but without a vaccine and all these things that we can't control, and we can sit here and go, oh, if only they had a vaccine. Oh, if only theater were back. We can't control those things. What we can control is this moment right now. And in this moment, how do I want to be? What do I want to accomplish? So a good way to stay encouraged in the midst of this is to focus on the work. Train, do the work. If you need to get an accountability group together where you read plays, if you want to get into an online acting class where you're studying every week and it's giving you something to practice your craft. One of the things I'm doing right now is, Michael, she just put a link in there. Go back and watch my Backstage video where I talk about how to structure your time during a time of crisis. I think you'll get a lot out of that. Cool. Who are the best people to go to when we encounter harassment, racism, and other inappropriate behavior in the creative community so we can prevent people like Weinstein from abusing power? So the best people to go to if you're a member of a union, go to your union leaders, report those people. That's what unions are for. They're there to protect us. If you're not a union member, this is where it can get a little challenging. This is one of the benefits of being a member of the union, in my opinion, is you do have somewhere to go in those situations. Now, Ashley, I hope this hasn't happened to you, and I pray that it doesn't happen to you. But I do think that there's a lot of training and that needs to happen at a higher level within the community to help people understand what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. For too long, those boundaries haven't been there. But what I would encourage you to do is get involved in organizations. There are lots of cool organizations. I imagine Backstage list that they put in here will actually have some, but find a women's organization. Again, the Actors Fund is amazing. They help you get free therapy, free medical care for people within the entertainment industry. So getting support around that is going to be the best way to go. But on the job, when you're in the job, finding someone from your union leader, which would usually be a stage manager in the theater, and finding out who that person is and discussing it with them. That's the best way to go. I'm so glad this helps, Anova. Thank you. Thank you. Or grow plants. That's a good idea. Savannah, thank you for answering my questions. I have a lot of training. I'll get back to my acting gig, and I will getting more auditions for films and community theater plays. Yeah, I don't think you can ever have enough training. To be honest, always keep training. Cool. These are some excellent questions. Now, for those of you that are really wanting to reach out to people and learn a little bit more about communicating in this industry, go check out my free webinar, bretworking.com. I'm not sure if the link is in here yet. I hope I didn't miss any questions. Let me just take one more glance and see. I have a lot of people that joined us. Hey, from Ireland. Listen, I believe, especially in our industry, I believe that there's going to be some changes. Changes are going to come. The Broadway industry is not going to come back the way it was before. And I don't think our community is going to come back to the way it was before. So if you really aren't getting involved in the movement now of change, find a way to get involved. It doesn't have to be standing, like I said, standing on a mountaintop. It can be just supporting. Online courses you recommend during this time? Yes, I would say exactly what Sindora said. There's a lot of classes on Backstage. Oh, the Bret Working webpage is not opening up. So go to this website because it should. Hold on. I think I got to put this link in there because I'm. Yeah, cool. Okay. Free training. How about check that link out? Go to bretshuford.com/free training. That should take you to the site. Groundlings, improv is a great place to go. So I hope this helps. I really want to inspire you guys to not be afraid to speak up. Our brothers and sisters need us right now, and we can really make a difference however you choose to do that. Any other questions? I'll skim through. Otherwise, we will go ahead and wrap up. Cool. Okay. Sorry about that link, Alina. Come check me out on Instagram at Bret Shuford. If you have any more questions, anything else you want to discuss, I hope you stay safe out there and healthy, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.